We need a system to respond to homelessness. No matter what changes in the landscape of funding, we have to have a system level governing body that makes decisions, that is made up of all of our stakeholders in our community.
Hi, my name is Rachel Pearsall. I'm the online learning manager with the National Alliance to End Homelessness, and I'm here with Josh Johnson, who is the Alliance's VP of Training and Technical Assistance. Josh, thank you so much for taking the time. Would you tell us a little bit more about yourself?
All right, thank you so much, Rachel. So as mentioned, I am the VP of Training and Technical Assistance with the Alliance. Prior to joining the Alliance, I worked for the Coalition on Homelessness and Housing in Ohio, where I provided training and technical assistance to the overall state and including the Ohio Balanced State. Got my start working in shelters and doing community-based work with adults with severe persistent mental illness.
We're here to talk about the homeless response system today. And that sounds really technical, but I actually think it's something that everybody should be interested in because everybody is interested in an end to homelessness. And at the Alliance, we use the phrase homeless response system or systems a lot, but it may be that not everybody knows what we mean by that. What, what is the homeless response system? In what sense is it a system?
Yeah, I think there is to your point, there is a lot of overcomplication of what that refers to. Actually, it's simple. The homeless response system is an ecosystem that's made up of programs, organizations, stakeholders who are interested, formally or informally working with folks experiencing homelessness, government agencies. Of course, you have your nonprofit providers, your faith communities, and so many other entities that are working to end homelessness within their community. A lot of times people are working in a part of a homeless response system and they don't know it. Just because there's not a communication and they don't think of themselves as a collective.
And homeless response wasn't always terribly coordinated, right? Like once upon a time, this group might set up a charity to help people experiencing homelessness, and this group might set up another one across town, and they didn't communicate. What were the problems with that, and why has there been a push for organizations to collaborate and to act like they're part of a system?
So, like historically, and in some cases still today, providers and community stakeholders often operate independently with limited coordination across programs or sectors. This has led to a duplication of services, gaps in care, and even a competition for resources.
So when we say a system, like how big are we talking about? Is it town a system? Is it city a system? Is it county a system? Like, and how does that get decided? Who decides where the boundaries of collaboration are?
So the size and scope of a homeless response system are really defined locally. A system might cover a single city. It could cover a county. It could cover both. It could cover multiple counties and cities, or even an entire state. Some communities also establish like smaller subsystems to ensure local representation and perspective is influenced in any decision making.
So, who should be in charge of a community's homeless response system?
That's a really interesting question because currently, right, we have our continuum of care. They're responsible for organizing and coordinating the local system, right? They have some funds to help do that. However, no no single COC should own or operate as the person or the entity in charge of a local homeless response system. Instead, governance should be guided by a representative body that brings together diverse stakeholders that reflect the community and ensures a shared accountability for overall outcomes and strategies to get to the ultimate goal of ending homelessness.
So, when you say COC, you're talking about this funding stream that comes from HUD, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, that that allows for this kind of coordination at the local level. But you're saying the COC lead agency in a community is not actually in charge. I think that might be a little bit surprising to some people.
Yes, I mean, I think the goal of the COC infrastructure was to ensure that there was a body that can help operate as the backbone to the local system. but not necessarily the driver of the local system. And I think sometimes that confuses some folks in communities. But the what should be driving the community's response is all the stakeholders in this community. And if you have a body that can actually help meetings take place, take notes, set agendas, ensure alignment with any type of responsibilities that funding requires, such as COC funds or ESG funds. But ultimately, it's to ensure that our system is operating, and there's somebody who's helping move that coordination and collective along.
And you've talked a little bit about who should be at the table there. I think you mentioned providers. I think you also mentioned people who have experienced or are experiencing homelessness. Kind of walk us through the whole list and who from different sectors of the community should be at the table.
Part of a lot of this is the local context matters. I think the most important thing that the governance structure represents the community, the diversity of the community, the key stakeholders of a community. But doing work across the country, we've seen some of the common themes look like, you have some local government officials or funders, service providers, but it has to be balanced to avoid overrepresentation. We have our crisis response partners, law enforcement, fire, emergency medical services, faith and philanthropy organizations, as you mentioned, your health, mental health and substance use treatment providers, your folks who are really focused more on employment and income focused strategies. As you mentioned, people with lived and or living experiences of homelessness, and to ensure that there's enough folks to where we're not tokenizing and that we're actually sharing power and compensating folks for their time, and they have a recent experience of what our system operates are, because those are usually the experts of what's happening within our system. Then you have folks who are not always a part of the conversation, but are really key stakeholders, like our business community or neighborhood associations. Usually schools are involved a lot of times with COCs. So again, the goal is to build this table. Ideally, when we think about like the governing structure or the executive maybe structure, we encourage communities to think about who are those people who can make decisions, who are the decision makers in your community. And it's going to look different in every community. There's some folks who can agree to one decision and make it happen, and then there's some folks who can agree to make a decision and have to talk to 2 or 3 people in order to make the decision. And there's nothing wrong with that, but what we encourage in order to really make meaningful, impactful decisions, and is to ensure that those folks who can make decisions and the key decision makers in your community are at that table, just to ensure that we're leveraging as much power as we can.
Now, one thing that strikes me about that list is that some of those folks are going to come to the table with different goals, right? Who is this collective governing body, this collaborative, diverse group of people? Who are they accountable to? Who should they be accountable to? How do you build that accountability into how they work?
Accountability is crucial for anything to progress and work towards a goal. So accountability, in my mind, first should be and foremost to center the people with lived or living experiences of homelessness. Right? Are they getting what they need? Are they moving towards some type of stability? Beyond that, the system must be accountable to, of course, funders, partners, each other, and the broader community. Right? And that's why accountability can look like transparency, especially through the use of qualitative and quantitative data. So how are we telling the story? How are we showing what we're doing? And to really garner and maintain trust and demonstrate progress with what we're doing.